Hi, everybody. I'm Brittany Lewis, a breaking news reporter here at Forbes. Joining me now is Congressman Jeff Hurd. Congressman, thank you so much for joining me.
Brittany, I'm happy to be with you.
I'm happy to be talking with you. We are currently sitting in day 8 of the government shutdown, and I had the opportunity yesterday to speak with your colleague, Congressman Gil Cisneros, and he told me negotiations on either side of the aisle simply weren't happening. Day 8, is that the same state of affairs that we're in? Are negotiations happening? What is the state of play with this government shutdown?
Well, Brittany, I'm not sure what negotiations there are to be happening. The Republicans in the House did its job. We passed a continuing resolution that would keep the government open. We didn't add any special riders or poison pills or policy asks in that legislation that we could negotiate away. We just had a clean funding bill to keep the government open for another 7 weeks. We did our job in the House. Now we're waiting on the Senate to do its job. Obviously, we need 60 votes in the Senate, which requires some Democrats will vote to keep the government open. We just haven't had that happen yet. It should be happening, and we're now on day 8 of this government shutdown as a result.
What are conversations between Republicans looking like? Because obviously, as you said, this passed the House. It needs Democrats' support in the Senate. 2 Democrats, 1 independent, did vote for the continuing resolution with Republicans. Is there talk of trying to pick off more Democrats? What's the strategy there?
Well, I think the strategy right now is, I will tell you, from leadership all the way down to rank and file Republicans, we're pretty united in seeing the importance of keeping government open, getting the Democrats to do their job on the Senate side to open up the government again. Look, we're on day 8 now. A week from today, I believe members of our military are not going to be receiving a paycheck. This is having real world consequences. Now, ultimately, the people that are not getting paid will eventually get paid when the government opens again. But that doesn't help when people are, living paycheck to paycheck and somebody has a mortgage payment they need to make or a car payment. And so I think there's going to be some pressure building on Democrats to do the right thing, to pass that legislation, to open up the government. And then we can talk about all the policy issues that we're talking about. I am on a bill that would extend the enhanced premium tax credit issue. I understand the importance of healthcare, but we need to do it in the context of a government that's open.
I've talked to Democrats and I've posed the Republican argument. I'm talking to you, a Republican, so I'll pose the Democrat argument. I've talked to multiple Democrats who say that they don't trust Republicans to negotiate in good faith if they were to open the government when it comes to health care. House Speaker Mike Johnson called what Democrats want as a wild wish list and big government liberal nonsense. Do Republicans, in your view, want to negotiate with Democrats at all to open the government or not when it comes to health care?
We need to open the government with the continuing resolution that we passed already. I don't think it's right to hold the federal government and our workers and our men and women in military uniform hostage when it comes to pay simply over policy issues. I would say the wish list that the Democrats have, their demands are not realistic. It's a non-starter within the Republican conference, and I'll tell you, just ideologically across the spectrum, that's the case. There are certain issues that we are willing to negotiate on, and I say that as one of the Republicans that's on a bipartisan bill to extend the enhanced premium tax credits. I'm not just saying that we're going to negotiate after the government opens up. I've already shown my willingness to do so. I'm on legislation that would address this healthcare issue, but it's not appropriate for Democrats to use this issue of healthcare and this other laundry list of basically undoing so much of the work that we've done this Congress already as the condition for opening up the government again. It's not right when Republicans do it, and it's not right when Democrats do it. And unfortunately, we're seeing Democrats doing it in this instance.
In all my conversations about this government shutdown, whether it's a Republican or Democrat, it's really interesting because both sides of the aisle say we don't like government shutdowns here. It's the other person's fault, and it's a real shame that members of our military will not get paid. Government workers will be furloughed. But it doesn't seem like there is any type of inch, any type of movement in opening this government. I mean, realistically, the government does have to open at some point. The longest government shutdown was 35 days. When do you think that's going to happen? Do you think it's going to be anytime soon?
Well, I think the pressure is only going to build. And like I said, I don't know what Republicans can concede here. We passed a law that would keep the government open that Democrats have supported multiple times in the past. We didn't add anything to it. There's nothing, no poison pills, no partisan tricks, nothing. There's nothing for Republicans to negotiate on when it comes to opening up the government. We're simply asking the Democrats to do what they've done many, many times before, which is pass this funding bill. These are Democratic spending levels. This is spending levels that were set in the Biden administration. We're asking Democrats to simply continue that. Once we get the government back open, then we can talk about the other issues that are vital to national security, that are vital to economic security, that talk about healthcare and ensuring that families and small businesses can afford healthcare going forward. And I'm one of those Republicans that's committed to following up on that. But first, we have to open up the government.
And as you noted earlier in this conversation, when there is a government shutdown, members of the military don't get paid. They show up to work, they don't get paid. Some government workers are furloughed, so they can't show up to work. And there is always the promise that they will get back paid once that the government opens. But there was reporting that indicated that they will not get paid. There will be no back pay there. Is that something that you support?
No, I think federal law requires, I think it was a 2019 statute that requires individuals that were furloughed to receive that back pay. It's through no fault of their own. I mean, this is, again, the Democrats that have shut down the government. I'm not sure why federal employees should be punished for being furloughed in a government shutdown that's completely unnecessary. The specifics of what the White House and the administration have proposed, I'd have to look at it, I'd have to see, but I'm not aware of any authority that would prevent back pay going to these employees that were furloughed through no fault of their own.
Just to note, when asked if furloughed workers should receive back pay, President Trump said, "I would say it depends on who we're talking about." And there was also reporting that indicated that the Office of Management and Budget was preparing for mass firings, which would go beyond the typical temporary furloughed workers. Is that something that you would support?
Look, I think the important thing is that we get the government open. We won't have to talk about furlough. There will be no need to furlough employees or even be talking about terminating employees if Democrats would just do their job, which is to pass a clean continuing resolution that would open up the government for 7 weeks to let us as Republicans and Democrats to do our job and to finish the ordinary budgeting process.
And privately, what are conversations with Democrats looking like now? I know that the House passed the continuing resolution. Are you personally talking with Democrats? Are you trying to lobby Democrats to your side? What does that really look like? Are there any lines of communication? Because as of now, it looks pretty contentious.
It does. I think both sides have dug in their heels. I honestly, on this one, I think the Republicans are in the right here. We're not playing partisan tricks. We're not playing partisan games. I don't think it's appropriate for Democrats to be holding the opening of the federal government hostage to these policy requests and asks and demands that I don't think are on balance reasonable. The communications that have been happening among rank and file members, they're sporadic for me personally. The communication with respect to Democrats has not been, I've been mostly focused on issues here in the district. Haven't been talking about the shutdown issues. I think they understand where we're coming from. I'm not sure that I quite understand where they're coming from because it's different than the position that they've held before, but we are where we are. Politics is what it is. I just hope that the Democrats come to their senses and they persuade their colleagues on the Senate side to change their votes and reopen the government.
And I know that you believe, and all Republicans believe, that this is a Democrat shutdown. Obviously, I don't need to tell you that Democrats are blaming Republicans here, calling it it's either the Trump shutdown or the Schumer shutdown, depending on what party you're in. I'm curious if you think Republicans are winning the messaging game on this and how much that really matters to you, because polling suggests that the overwhelming majority of American voters do not like a government shutdown. I mean, I've never met someone who was ecstatic about it. However, multiple polls do suggest that more Americans blame Republicans for the shutdown than Democrats. Does that bother you?
Yeah, it bothers me because it's not true. I mean, the legislation that we passed out of the House, we got our job done. The Senate needs to do its job. Republicans do control both houses of Congress, but everyone knows that in the Senate, you have to have a filibuster-proof majority. You need 60 members of the Senate to vote to keep the government open, or in this case, to reopen the government. That requires at least 7 Democratic senators to vote the right way, in the way that they've done before. Listen, there's certainly in the past, Republicans were subject to criticism, and we haven't necessarily we're not immune to those telling us that we've done things wrong. But in this case, honest to goodness, it really is a straightforward funding mechanism to reopen the government. We're not asking for any we're just asking the Democrats to continue funding the programs that people in my district and other districts rely on. If we had a bunch of asks in here, a bunch of additional policy requests or poison pills or hot button social issues that we had put in the funding request, I would understand why Democrats would call foul and they'd say, why we're not going to open the government with these conditions. But that's not in this legislation. It really, in this case, is a straightforward continuing resolution that would keep the government open. And Democrats are using this as an excuse to advance a whole bunch of other policy proposals that aren't going to get any traction with Republicans. And I don't think that's the right thing to do, to close down the government for that reason.
I feel like in these conversations, and in all of my years of reporting, I've never had conversations like this with members of both parties where it seems like there's so much daylight between them, and it seems like there's nowhere to meet in the middle here. And I know that I've asked this in other ways before, but how do you think that we are going to meet in the middle here, if at all? I mean, who's going to fold first? What does an off-ramp look like? Because it seems like both politically and I guess in what everyone has been saying, they're not folding.
Yeah, well, I think what's going to happen is, I think the pressure of the shutdown, the negotiations that we're talking about having aren't just require a simple yes vote by the 7 Democrats in the Senate. I'm committed to addressing the underlying policy issues, the healthcare issue, and like I said, I'm not just saying this. I'm actually on bipartisan legislation already that would extend the enhanced premium tax credits. I know that's a core demand that the Democrats are making here. I will tell you, though, that their demand is not just a temporary extension of the enhanced premium tax credits, it's a permanent extension of the enhanced premium tax credits. This is the extension of a project that they themselves set a sunset on. I mean, the reason that these enhanced premium tax credits are terminating is because they were meant to be temporary. They were meant to expire, and that was what the legislation did. We're talking about a temporary extension. A permanent extension, like what they're demanding, doesn't make any sense. It's not good public policy. I'm willing to compromise and negotiate on the enhanced premium tax credit issue. Maybe we can extend it a little bit more, but those discussions need to happen in the context of a government that's open. We're not going to get to that step unless Democrats in the Senate do their job like we did in the House and vote to open the government up again.
Well, there's certainly a lot to look out for, and as we see whether or not the government opens, when it does, if it does, I hope you can come back on and join me and share your perspective. Congressman Jeff Hurd, thank you so much. You're welcome back anytime.
Thank you so much, Brittany. Happy to join you.